Good afternoon, Suidlanders. How are you? Today is Friday, the 21st of April, and this is Suidlanders Week in Review. I must tell you that I'm a little bit worked up. I've just produced the video that some of you will have already seen, perhaps, about the Johannesburg High Court decision not to disallow the people of Frankfurt in the Free State to use a system that they've put up, solar farm, and then there's a management system and what have you, for that municipality to do without Eskom, to forego Eskom, to compensate when Eskom has blackouts. And I haven't been this angry since about 7 years ago. I explained to somebody the very difficult situation in which I found myself at the time, having gone into a business deal that turned out to be a scam, and having lost everything and more, and living in a house owned by two women with a very strong connection to the uppermost reaches of the African National Congress. I told this person that they should not put my name on the internet. And vrachtig, they did so. It was an act of betrayal that I shall never forgive as long as I live, as true as the Lord reigns forever and ever. And I am approaching that angry today. So I'm going to do this thing, and let's see how it goes, but I just ask you to be patient if I'm a little bit out of sorts. The week in review, today being Friday from last Saturday inclusive. We heard that the petrol prices will increase by 84 and 76 cents a litre, respectively for 93 and 95. Diesel will decrease 5 parts per million, 50 parts per million, 23 cents for 5 and 42 for 50, thank goodness. I beg your pardon. On my list, I'm cutting out the things that are not that big. There's been a drama in Sudan that came out last weekend. Khartoum airport had been taken over by paramilitary forces. There have been shootings and gun battles, what have you, the normal stuff. The loss of life is not that great relative to the sort of event that it is. As of this morning, it was 377 officially dead. Which is, of course, 377 people, but so far, it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, and it is turning out on some of the websites that I follow, very high-level ones that I don't use on my groups, that it appears to be an insurrection instigated by the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America to open some kind of front, given that there is a Russian base there, to draw in some Russian forces, open a second front through the proxies of the Sudanese people. Let's see, doubtless the truth will come out in the fullness of time. National unrest has continued in France, although that bill to extend the pension age from 62 to 64 has gone through. We learned of, last night when I was in bed doing my little exercises to fall asleep, it was on my conscience that I ever posted this on one of my groups, this thing on this list here, or on 4 groups. There is an art exhibition in Paris right now that features explicit pedophiliac imagery. And I thought to myself last night, did I do the right thing by even reporting that? How can you not? But it's easy to say, how can you not? You have to report that. This is an egregious illustration of the wickedness of the times in which we live. about which we Christian conservatives must know for the sakes of our children. But it is that wicked that I'm not even now sure that it was right for Christian eyes to see it. Dear me. Dear, dear, dear me. Dear me. We witnessed on Sunday further collapse of power pylons in Gauteng overnight, Saturday to the Sunday. That's more local than anything else. Vladimir Putin met with the Chinese defense minister. Now, I should point out to you that in diplomatic terms, usually you meet with your equal or your peer somehow. It's highly unusual that a defense minister would be received by a president. But it is generally being taken by the best observers of these things in the world, who we, Suidlanders, follow very closely at Mr. Miller's instruction, that this is a sign of an urgent preparation for a crisis, one in which it was deemed only suitable for the Chinese emissary. So he's being sent like a messenger by his president, Xi Jinping. Hey, you better go and tell the Russians, but make sure you speak to old Vlad himself. This is only for the top dog. Got me? Right. You get the idea. Very exceptional thing. Very, very exceptional things. We don't know what it's about, but it seems as if the Russians and the Chinese felt the need to hold an urgent meeting between non-equals. Cuba is accepting the Russian payment system. The MIR system, MIR, MIR. It's a very important thing altogether. Russian oil exports have hit a near 3-year high, we learned on Monday. It's just going up and up and up. Russia sent its first fuel cargo to Iran by rail. We learned that on Monday too. So doubtless we can expect an uprising on the Ustjur Plateau 2 weeks after a team of American and Dutch or Belgian students filmed some documentary on about a rare eagle. A nice new series on what the Prophet said about the end times, a 12-part series, not produced by us Suidlanders, but by people we know very well. The first one has been published, and I disseminated it very widely. You should too, if you have it. Then, we learned that the IMF had unveiled a new global currency known as the Universal Monetary Unit. And that was reported by no less than Michael Snyder, for those of you who know who he is. Sadly, Ernst van den Berg contacted me about 40 minutes ago to tell me that it has since transpired that that is erroneous. It was reported in error. In fact, that was not driven by the International Monetary Fund itself, but by another private company. I suspect that what Ernst shared with us is a hoodwinking, that they're now ducking and diving, saying, no, it wasn't us, it was them, that's not official, we didn't endorse that. Because there's been widespread alarm reporting of it. But as it stands, we must go with this latest article, the one that Ernst, he was doing research on this thing, and he got hold of me to caution me. I suspect that they're making fools of us. But for now, we have to go with what is putatively true. Kamstag die Waarheid. That's the way it is. We were told by the Citizen on Monday that we are indeed, or have been experiencing, stage 8 load shedding. Cyril Ramaphosa signed the highly contested electoral amendment bill into law. It's very controversial. We are going to make a video about this, and I will explain it properly. It's far too, there's far too much to it for me to do any justice at all in this video. So we're going to skip it all together if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen. There is a cholera alert. A cholera alert was issued on Tuesday in Gauteng. Numerous lootings in America involving up to or between 300 and 400 people a time. We learned from News 24 on Wednesday that the state has given Eskom a R500 billion since load shedding started 15 years ago. I would love to know how much of that was stolen. Oh! Another expert came out to say that winter is going to be far worse in terms of load shedding than we think. In other words, he was making the point, you think it's going to be this bad? You're hearing people talk about stage 6 and stage 8, this and that. Well, I'm telling you for the following reasons, it's going to be worse. The long and the short of what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that the reports only become more severe. Therefore, we would be wise to prepare for something like stage 9 or 10 or 11 in our homes and businesses. Then a following expert came out and he did an interview with SABC Morning something, and he demonstrated with graphs and historical trends and averages, facts, figures, data, statistics that we should realistically look at stage 11 load shedding, particularly in June. Food price hikes hit 14%. I put it to you that they are worse than that, demonstrably worse. We learned that Russian inflation has fallen over the past year to the end of March to 3% on average throughout the year. We discovered yesterday, Thursday, in fact it was Wednesday US time because they're 7 hours behind us on the East Coast, then 8 hours at Central Time, then Arizona and Mountain Time are 7, 8, 9, and then Pacific Time, that's to say California, Oregon, and Washington State on the West Coast, 10 hours behind us. Anyway, Wednesday US time, Robert Kennedy, RFK, namesake of his father, Bobby Kennedy, who was assassinated, and of course, nephew to JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, has announced his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination. So he's entering the race now. The race will be concluded with the presidential elections in November of next year, 2024. So between now and then, we're going to see the Democratic primaries, the Republican primaries, then they're going to have the national conventions and so on, and it'll end up being one Republican, one Democrat that are nominated by their respective parties to face off against one another in November of next year to assume the presidency in January of 2025, as the Americans customarily do it. It's a very, very big thing. Huge thing. This man has an enormous following, and he was the guy who explained or revealed very much of the deleteriousness, the badness, the danger of of the past few years. We learned, let me tell you this, in the past 15 years, the prices of everything should have gone up by about 200%. I won't bore you with the details, but that's a mathematical fact. When you live in a society whose average consumer price increase is about 7% a year, in 10 years, the value of money halves because the effect is cumulative. So it's not 77%, 10 times 7, or 70% I should say, it's 100% because it's cumulative. But we learned that electricity has gone up by 547%. Medical aids, bless them, they were experiencing all these heart attack claims. Discovery, that's you, 361%. Schools, 311%. The criminals, fuel, 293%. Food, 271%. Booze and smokes, 257%. That's okay. I drink and I smoke, but I know that it's just as well that the price should go up because they're no good. Medical services, as opposed to medical aid, 247%. New vehicles, 220%. And then hotels, accommodation, 192%. And all of the rest beneath what it should have been. Only 5 of, this is a small thing, but maybe of interest to you, only 5 of 87 Veldwachter, field guard. I've got a blank, I'm hitting a blank, I can't think of the English word. Veldwachter poste in Kreurwiltuin gevul. Doubtless the obstacle is some BEE thing. The ANC is set to take on price gougers, and take on retailers, I beg your pardon, for price gouging and racist practices. That's right. The white owners of businesses are pitching their prices at a level that is intentionally detrimental to black people. Must be. And what else could be the explanation? Couldn't be inflation. It couldn't be the continental catastrophe that is the governance of this country that is leading to food price increases, because it's costing more to get the stuff off the land because of electricity problems. No, it's got to be the racists. Jan van Riebeck. Must be. Who else? I beg your pardon. Scroll down. We learned as a matter of certainty yesterday that by the end of week 13 of 2023, that being the week ending the 31st of March, from government figures in the United Kingdom, directly, that the excess death, according to the 5-year moving average, is 20.9%. So 1/5 again, more people are dying than typically did for that same period in recent years. That's severe, guys, because there's a cumulative effect. It's very bad. Over 5 years, that could mean, I could be exaggerating, I'm sucking this out of my thumb, 10% of the population or 5% of the population. We learned overnight, that is to say Thursday, American time, Friday morning, South Africa time, that United States banks have borrowed $500 billion from a certain channel. We needn't get into the technicalities of it. I'll do a video about it. A certain facility. In the month of March alone, to stay afloat as American citizens whip their money out of the banks. Finally, we have the figures. They had to borrow $495 billion to save themselves from going under. This financial crisis that Suidlanders has been warning of is as bad, if not worse, than we have been saying to you in recent months. So it turns out. And that looks like it's that for this week ending Friday, the 21st of April. We've got some new stuff coming in from Vessel Ha Skippers. Whoa, I'll add that to my list, just shift it across. Just give me a second, guys. This looks like it could be quite dramatic. All right, what is this here? The Governor of the Reserve Bank, Lesetja Kanyago, warns, this is reported in Business Day, it's time for hard fiscal choices. Today's excesses cannot be tomorrow's burden. Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kanyago has urged politicians to make hard, unpopular fiscal choices to maintain the credibility of budgetary commitments as they, presumably the politicians, juggle spending pressures with one of the heaviest debt loads in emerging markets around the world. We must be honest as South Africans that we cannot have enough of everything and that there are trade-offs to be made, and those trade-offs will be difficult. And who makes those choices? It is duly elected representatives of our people. And that is where the article ends for free. You have to pay to read more. Guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you again soon once I've calmed down about the this High Court judgment against Frankfurt being able to provide a solution where the government of the Republic, that is to say the African National Congress and its state, the deployed cadres of the African National Congress that populate and saturate the state completely, and its state-owned enterprises, equally populated and saturated by deployed cadres of the African National Congress, cannot provide electricity to women and children in winter. May God not have mercy on them.